Okay.
Hey, I'm here with Tim Worke, AGC, CEO of the Associated General Contractors of Minnesota. Tim, how you doing today?
Hey, Brian. Good. Thanks for giving me time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Wanted to visit with Tim about the upcoming Minnesota Construction Summit, great event coming up here in February at the St. Paul River Center, and chat maybe a little bit about the AGC's annual construction industry assessment for 2025. But also, I was wondering, Tim, just by to get started, if you could perhaps introduce yourself to some of our listeners out there. I know you're certainly no stranger to Minnesota's construction industry, the voice of the industry to a great extent for many years now, and I've always considered you a go-to source of timely information about Minnesota's construction industry. And you're someone who you don't sugarcoat things, but you don't engage in hyperbole either, and I appreciate that. But tell us, Tim, a little bit about yourself and how
Right.
you kind of your career path and how you ended up at AGC.
Well, thank you, Brian. First, you're very kind. Um, yeah, I've been around this industry now for a better part of 37 years or more, and have been fortunate to lead AGC for 8 years now, and have been at the chapter for 22 years. But um, the organization is probably the most recognized and most engaged construction organization in Minnesota. We cover a pretty large footprint. We're a statewide group. We have both commercial building and highway heavy contractors as part of our membership. We have about 400 members overall, and we cover a lot of very large scale industry related issues, and we work on very niche and very small issues as long as they help elevate and advance the industry. Um, so that's my career path to AGC. Started with 17 years at the state DOT doing policy development work and advocacy work. I was fortunate to spend a considerable amount of time in Washington, D.C., doing advocacy work as well for the department, but came to AGC in 2003 and found a home and enjoy the work. So especially being able to um, tell the good stories about what we do to folks like you and to the public. So appreciate it.
Yeah, nice. And did you get to know Representative Oberstar there in Washington? He was a huge, big influence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And also a very large personality. Knew him well. Knew Congressman Overstar well, and he was such a wealth of knowledge and a huge benefit to the state. His fingerprints and his influence are on a lot of things that the public probably just takes for granted. But enjoyed him, miss him immensely, and I'm sure the state misses him as well. So
Well, let's talk a little bit first, just briefly about the construction industry assessment that was recently released. It looks like in general, just reading through it, optimism is up a bit among construction businesses in Minnesota. There's driving that optimism is project funding, advances in technology, still some ongoing concerns about workforce availability, rising costs of doing business, things like that. What are some of your biggest takeaways from that survey?
yeah, thanks, Brian, for teeing that up. And just a little about the survey. Again, it covers a broad, vast footprint. We include the architects and engineers in order to get a flavor for the entire industry. They're such an important part of construction commodity, and so we get their participation. We had about 170 respondents this year, and just some high point takeaways from it. You mentioned it's an outlook. It is a perception survey, so it's not using source data or real data that comes from sources and then is interpreted. It is a perception of people in the industry of what look forward into 2025, and then asking things like what do they see as positives? What are some drags? So on the positive side, you did mention an outlook for the market into 2025. It is dipped a little bit from last year, but overall, a pretty positive assessment as folks look at it. I would point out the one maybe headwind that we're starting to see from this data is a concern about the transportation and infrastructure market. And it was a surprise that negative outlook jumped a little bit from 3% last year, I believe, to 9 or 10% in this survey. And that, I think, is due to some challenges in rolling out some of these big investments that the public has put forward. The IIJA at the federal level, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, has been a slow rollout. And then now the state has got a number of new initiatives that will bring revenue to transportation construction, and they're just slow rolling out. So our members are concerned that it's a flat market for the next 2 years or so, but then we hope to see that turn around. But some other things, Brian, you mentioned drags. What people see as drags on the marketplace is perennial issue and challenge, like any other market sector, is access to workers. But in particular, in this case, it's skilled and trained workforce that pings pretty high, as does concern about inflation. So our members are keeping an eye on those things. But you mentioned the positives. They're looking at funding availability and also the technology advances. In the technology side, the architects in particular had a very high response to that, and that's encouraging. And you'd expect, especially a field like architecture, probably to utilize technology and try to leverage that quite a bit. So those are some positive takeaways. We are seeing, some of those concerns of the past start to wane. I think we're past the concern about pathogens and things like COVID and how they may affect construction. Even though we had the opportunity for those things to be listed as concerns, they have dropped way down, as has supply chain issues and materials availability. But again, skilled and trained workforce is probably one of the bigger concerns. I will say, with respect, another interesting point in bringing the post-COVID marketplace to the forefront again, we saw a big transition in the way businesses utilize their workforce, and offering those workers a hybrid or a entire work from home opportunity. And in the months just on the other side of the COVID shutdown, there was a very high support for offering workforce the ability to work from home and hybridization. And that has waned over the past 3 years to the point where this survey reflects a pretty high drop off from firms that used to support or provide, encourage their workforce to work from home. That was in the high 50s% of respondents directly following COVID, and it's now dropped down to the low 40s. So I think we're starting to see a trend for companies calling their people back into the office, concerns about productivity maybe, and concerns about office interaction, building a culture within the office. And the last observation I can make that comes to mind, Brian, is attracting and retaining workforce. Um, the responses for the last couple of years have been around building a positive company culture, and focusing and investing in your company culture was what employers felt in the construction sector was the greatest thing they could do to attract and retain. And now we're seeing compensation return as king, that employers are citing increased compensation and improved compensation packages as a more useful tool. So basically, those two items flip-flopped over the last couple of years. Culture was first, and now it's flipped over again back to compensation. So overall, Brian, it's a deep dive into the survey is a deep dive into a lot of data, a lot of interesting facts as you tease them out of the responses. It's useful and unique in that we segment the answers. If you're a highway contractor, there are answers specifically related to highway construction. If you're a commercial builder, if you're a union contractor, if you're a non-union contractor, we segment all those responses. And again, we do include responses for engineering, professional engineers, and architects. So the last question that we always provide, which I think is probably the most interesting part of the survey, is an open-ended question. We say, what keeps you up at night? And we allow for respondents to just give us an unedited perspective. And those responses can be very candid. They can be very opinionated, but they're also very insightful. And I would take away one thing from that. There is a very enlightened comment in there about the impact that the crisis of mental health and suicide in the construction industry, and that we need to, as an industry, stand up and address that problem. And we are working on some things as an organization and partner with other groups to that end. But this response in particular cited the need to bring project owners to the table and start having a candid conversation about what the owners are doing with respect to their proposals and the proposal requirements that are driving or underlying maybe causes of stressors in the construction industry that may lead to mental health challenges. But that's a little quick 3-minute thumbnail on some highlights. All of those things, including the survey, is on our website. And we archive the previous 15 years of responses for anyone who really wants to get into the detail. But it's all available at agcmn.org and is listed on our website under, it's called the survey assessment. So thanks.
Well, I always look forward to that survey. It's always a lot of good information there. And it's interesting that you highlighted the comment about mental health. That jumped out at me as well. And I know, Tim, that that's been a top of mind issue for you and AGC as a whole. And so thanks for bringing some awareness to that, and good work on shining the light on that issue. But let's segue to the Minnesota Construction Summit. It's coming up here February 19th and 20th, 2025 at the St. Paul River Center. I was just looking at the agenda and the lineup of speakers. You have quite a mix of speakers there scheduled, from climatologists to safety experts to construction attorneys. I was wondering, Tim, if you could just maybe walk us through a few of the highlights and what attendees might expect to see there.
Sure. Yeah, Brian, and you teed that up well. It's an industry learning event that we put together, and we do it around a few parameters. There's something for everybody here, in that if you're an executive leader, of a construction business or a construction affiliate partner, you'll find content that's relevant. If you're someone who is on a professional staff within a construction organization, there are things that will be cutting edge. There'll be things that are new, but also maybe some things here and some content that stimulates the way you look at things. There's professional development opportunity as well, both personal and professional seminars and presentations that are emerging trends or practical applications that you can take back and apply both to your work and to yourself as an individual. And then there's field-oriented related development opportunities as well for those folks that have supervisory or management responsibility for projects or field-related work. But we organize the day, the event around a very compact schedule. So it's a day and a half. We know time is precious for people, and they want to spend it in a valuable way. And so we only go a day and a half. But our keynotes, I think, are what attract a lot of people. And they want someone to be engaging and captivating and entertaining, yet they want relevant content. And our first day keynote is a guy named Jason Coons, highly regarded, highly recommended speaker nationally, coming to us to speak about the future of construction leadership. And draw a line back to our survey that we just talked about. One of the questions in that survey talks about what are some biggest challenges facing the future of your business? And for the first time in that survey, the third highest response was finding the next generation of leaders in your construction business. And Jason's going to talk about that, and he's going to talk about how to build a strong leadership team and how to build a strong culture, those types of things. Dynamic, insightful speaker. Our second day opening general session speaker on Thursday the 20th is a pairing of two probably well-known people to a lot of personalities to a lot of folks. Dr. Mark Seeley, who is retired from, I believe, from the University of Minnesota as a climatologist, and well-known for his work in analyzing climate trends in data over many years. And then former KARE 11 meteorologist Sven Sundgaard, who is the two of them are going to talk about the impact of climate change and what they're seeing in the trends and the data and what that may mean for the future. And it's important for our industry in that those trends will have an impact on operations and how we build things and how we schedule construction. And I think they're both dynamic personalities. That's going to be a great opportunity on day two. Some of our breakout things, we, of course, spend a lot of time talking about what's new in the policy arena and policy development with a new administration in Washington. We also have a new leader in our parent organization, AGC of America. His name is Jeff Schoaf. He's been on staff at AGC of America for a number of years. Jeff's going to come and join us and give our members and participants an update on what's going on policy-wise and regulatory-wise in DC. And we're going to have a political panel later in the day that's going to talk about Minnesota politics, which are interesting in and of themselves, especially coming into the new legislative session and what's happening there. So some policy work. We have a number of sessions that relate to legal related aspects of construction. Some are geared towards ethics. Some are geared towards contract related things. But all of those have continuing legal ed accreditation for folks that are looking for getting credit for their CLEs, and they're industry practitioners that will be driving those sessions and providing content. Important also to our members is equity and inclusion and diversity, and we have a number of sessions on that, dealing with that changing landscape. Particularly one session I'm looking at on the agenda here is called Governance and Inclusion, Navigating Affirmative Action and ESG Regulations to Promote Inclusive and Responsible Cultures. So that's, those things are always top of mind for folks. The two related emerging topics that I wanted to highlight as well, Brian, are the impact and evolution of technology in construction. In particular, artificial intelligence is all the rage these days. We've devoted some time in a number of sessions to AI, what it is at a basic level. I think there's a huge void yet outstanding with folks just understanding what it is and maybe what it isn't. But we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, and then we're going to talk about some of its applicability. Particularly interesting session there is it's titled Robots at Work, Successes and Challenges in Construction Automation. If you like bells and whistles and you like innovation in autonomous construction and those kinds of things, we have some folks in the industry are actually doing those things right now, are going to be part of a session on automation and the challenges that brings in construction. We do spend some time in the space on mental health and worker well-being, and some breakout sessions dealing with that on how to deal with those challenges and some resources and how to apply those resources. So if there's something on there, Brian, you want to specifically ask me about, I'd be happy to stop here and
Well,
entertain what.
Yeah, well, I know we're limited on time here, and I think you really covered it well, Tim, just giving us a snapshot of what we can expect. I think those sessions that you walked us through will be very well attended. We talked about technology and how that's a positive factor now in driving some optimism in the industry, and of course, the importance of mental health. I'm sure those will all be very well attended and informative events. So I just was wondering, Tim, if you could, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to say, we're not all about at these events, all about just learning and powering through things. There is some fun networking, and to put a plug in on the first day at the end of the sessions, we do have a very large vendor fair. And as part of that, we're bringing some entertainment in. And folks might be interested in recognize the name Mick Sterling, Twin Cities well-renowned entertainer and singer. Mick will bring in his large band, and we're going to have some fun that evening, along with having our vendor fair. So we're prepared for having fun too. So
great! It's always good to have a little fun. Tim, where can people go for more information about this event and for information on how to register?
Sure. Yeah, our website, pretty basic, agcmn.org. It's probably the first thing that pops up there, but if you go to agcmn.org and then /construction summit, it'll take you right to the page to register. And for all the content and all the opportunity networking and whatnot, I think we have it priced very competitively, and we expect somewhere between 300 and 400 attendees. So looking forward to it.
Great. And I know AGC always does a great job with this event, and you have some terrific sponsors too, and including finance and commerce. I should add, full disclosure, that we are indeed one of the sponsors. So glad to.
We love the relationship, Brian.
Yeah, likewise. Well, thank you, Tim, for your time. It's been great chatting with you, and mark the event on my calendar and hope to see you there. And wish you well. We've got a lot of other stuff that we didn't really get into,
Right.
like the legislative session and things like that. But that could be a topic for another day. So
Appreciate it. Thank you,
yeah,
Brian.
Tim, thank you. Have a good day.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Take care, Brian.
Take care, Tim. Thank you. Appreciate it.